Well, one of the things I like to keep doing is compare various fantasy fictions to Buffy, both the TV show as well as Angel, but even some of the wider media, whether the Buffy comics or Buffy the movie and so on and so forth. So here we're going to concentrate on Wheel of Time and why almost universally season 1 is very hated or looked down upon. There is a small part of the Wheel of Time fandom that likes it, but almost none of them are saying it was the greatest thing in the universe. So what went wrong? Well, many reasons why, but we're going to focus on one particular issue through a YouTuber. And pardon me, I don't know who his name is. I just looked up the video. It was very good. He makes some good points, makes a lot of mistakes, but we're going to focus on the, I think, productive side of what he's criticizing in season 1.
Dragon is, without any context there, the reveal was stupid. Not just the mystery, but that it was a mystery at all. So, like, they gave hints and, like, sort of teased the viewer that, oh, any of these 5 people, men or women, could be the dragon reborn. And then at the end, when they do reveal it, it's just...
Well, if you're a Buffy fan, and I want to alert people, there will be only very minor spoilers. I'm going to keep it very vague for Buffy, Wheel of Time, Game of Thrones, and The Dark Tower. So I'm not going to ruin the central story. I'm going to keep it very vague. But if you do know Buffy, you know this is actually very similar because season 1 is shorter than all the other seasons, and Joss Whedon had to work with much more limited resources and a very restricted time frame. And you could argue it's really the same thing. In terms of the central story, really that's 6 episodes. Even though technically it's over 10 episodes in the first season, really only a handful of episodes are about the central story. There's a couple episodes you could just cut out, and some of them are good, by the way. I like the Nightmare episode, but they're not really vital to the final battle. So now let's get to the major dilemma here, which is the chosen one, but also a political issue. And again, I'm not going to focus too much on the political issue, but you can't get out of Buffy, quote, being a feminist show that is central to its core story. Now, whether the feminism is good or makes sense, we're going to put aside. That is the identity. It is a feminist female hero, and it's her story. Now, Wheel of Time is a little bit interesting because it is also a feminist mythology, but the central hero is a male, but he needs the help of women, and that's Rand. And to be fair, in the book, at least the first book with Wheel of Time, it is a little bit of a mystery who Rand is and if he is the dragon. However, you can praise Robert Jordan on many levels, and I do think he is a good writer, but I do not think he's Stephen King. I do not think he's Joss Whedon. I don't think he's George Martin. So the mystery is kind of lame. There are just too many clues, so we know ahead of time it's probably Rand. So who is the dragon mystery, even in the book, is kind of obvious. But the show, I think, made a big mistake of taking this way too seriously, and they made that a central mystery. So compare that to Buffy, where in the first episode, we know she's the chosen one. We know who Buffy is. Buffy is Sarah Michelle Gellar. Giles tells us, you have a destiny. It's very explicit in the first episode. In the first 2 episodes, we know she's the Slayer. We know the Slayers have a destiny. Now imagine they radically reorganized the entire series, re-edited it, that we don't know who the Slayer is. So clearly they have to change the title. It's not Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's just the Slayer. So who is the Slayer? The Slayer could be Angel, could be Giles, could be Xander, could be Willow. Now that might be an interesting story, but in retrospect, that would be a big mistake. And if you spent about 8 episodes on the mystery of who is the Slayer, who is killing the vampires, and in the final episode you say, hey, it turns out it was Buffy, the cheerleader. She was killing the dragons. She was killing the vampires. She's the chosen one. She's going to fight the master in the master plot. You'd be like, who is Buffy? We only get a few scenes with her, so it's like, who is this girl? What do you mean destiny? What do you mean chosen one? Hellmouth? What is that about? That's what they did with Wheel of Time. It's like they withheld the most vital information, the most valuable points about the dragon until the last minute. So we get literally to episode 7, where I think technically we can figure it out. Though some people might be like, well, really, episode 8, he's finally the dragon. For about 6 episodes, we don't know who the dragon is or what the dragon is. And then they say, oh, he's dragon. Dragon Man is going to fight the dark thing at the end. And you're like, well, we spend time with Rand. And to be fair, I think this Rand is much more interesting than the book Rand, who feels like a robot to me. So the TV Rand is more interesting. Nevertheless, just in terms of plot and characters, That's a big risk. Like, you've just taken a huge amount of time to misdirect the audience. And what did we get out of it? It's not much of a mystery because we only have 5 people. So just by chance, you could guess. Like, if we only have Xander, Giles, Willow, and Angel, well, just by chance, we're going to guess who the chosen one is. We don't have to know it's Buffy. It just felt like a really lame mystery for the audience. Whatever. And I understand with Game of Thrones, I think that was their model. Yes, there is a major mystery in the first season, but not about Daenerys, not about Tyrion. It's not a mystery who the main characters are. There is a mystery that kickstarts the plot, and it is valuable, but the central story, even in the TV show, is not about that mystery. It's just functional. So I don't think they differentiated what is a good mystery for the characters versus the audience. They should have just let the audience know early on, it's Rand. If you want this mystery for the characters, that's fine, but really leaving it up to the last minute that, oh, guess what? It was Rand. It was his story is pretty moronic. That's just a huge waste of time. And now you've wasted all these resources, all these episodes, and we've just begun the real story because now it's like, oh, it's the Rand story. It's the Dragon Reborn Chosen One story. That's like literally going through the season 1 of Buffy, and at the very end we find out, oh, it's Buffy, it's her story. But season 2, we're finally going to get into Buffy. It's like, well, what was season 1 about? I don't know. Dragons died, vampires died, orcs died, monsters died. We don't know why or how. They just died. And that's not very interesting in retrospect. That's just a very lazy attempt to generate tension and not a good idea when you're starting a fantasy series with a chosen one narrative.